A debate exploded on ABC's The View. Joy Behar, Alicia Fair Griffin, Sunny Hostin, and then someone else. And it's about the subject of Biden. Right now you have Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper releasing their book where juicy details are supposedly in there and some of them are getting revealed. And there's sort of this discussion going on right now, debate, not just over Biden's cognitive fitness, and the decline, but how much that should be focused on in the face of Trump's disaster. The disaster just collectively that is Trump, that is his administration, his authoritarianism, his policies, and his violations of the Constitution. How much emphasis should be put behind us when there's so much we need to focus on ahead of us? But how do we properly charge ahead if we don't take the correct lessons from behind, right? So I get why it's getting so tense and tight, but it's okay. I think we can have this thoughtfully and have the proper takeaways without taking away from calling out Trump's badness. But here they got into a clash over this. I do want to play and we'll talk about it. And then I'll get to flashing back to me breaking down kind of aside from The View, a lot of this tension within the same movement of people, right? People united around sort of the same goals, but tension about how this issue of Biden and what caused him to drop off the ticket and cognitive stuff, how that should be discussed and if it should even be discussed at this point in time. But first, here's this going off the rails.
Texted war plans to their brother.
For Trump, but it's just like
Joe Biden.
No, but do we just keep lowering the bar because Trump is bad? Nothing else is bad because Trump is bad? It's like, well, that can also be true.
Yeah, but the ship has sailed. It's out in the ocean somewhere with Biden.
We have Trump
it's over. Get over it.
No, we have Trump because you guys screwed this up. With all due respect.
All right, but does it help to just keep going over the same material?
That's when I was watching and I was like, oh, here we go. And it's funny, I love when these segments end with, we're going to break, which is what happens here.
No, we have Trump because you guys screwed this up. With all due respect.
All right, but does it help to just keep going over the same material about Biden over and over again?
I actually think we have Trump
really?
because the Trump administration, Trump lied to people. I think that's why we have.
He won more votes. That is a fact.
I think he lied to his base. I think he told his base that they were going to, their overtime would not be taxed. That was a lie.
Actually, that's in the new tax bill. It's literally in the tax bill in Congress.
They had to fight to put that in. They had to fight to put that back in. He had every intention of taking away that.
That's not true. He ran on no tax on tips, and it's in the tax bill.
Yeah, but it wasn't in it originally. I also think that a lot of people are, and Swazi pointed it out that it wasn't in there. I think the other thing that people need to realize is that they were lied to. Federal workers that voted for him, farmers that voted for him, immigrants that voted for him, they were lied to. That is why we have Trump, not because of any other driving force.
I'm going to give you the last word. Go ahead. Just like 30 seconds.
I don't think these are normal times, and I think we have too much to do right now to fight the authoritarianism that we are facing on a daily basis and the lack of due process and the threats on our rights to be relitigating this. And I think the reason that we have Trump is because Republicans are cut from a different cloth. And they didn't mind, so many of them didn't mind in 2016 voting for a sexual harasser who we heard boast about assault, because they wanted to be in power. And in 2024, they didn't mind voting for a twice impeached guy who had been convicted of 34 felonies because they wanted to be in power.
Go ahead.
Well, and they also, Dems are actually taking a page from Republicans because Republicans didn't want us to look at January 6th. They said, let's just look forward. Don't look at what happened on that day. Look over there. So in a way, it's working. Both parties did this.
How did Joe Biden violate laws? What insurrection did he lead?
What about is not to get the point here.
So Joe Biden
just want to keep lowering the bar because
Joe Biden's cognitive decline caused a defeat. It didn't cost the decay of freedom.
Anna, what I said at this table multiple times is I didn't think anyone was.
I feel like I say this with love, appreciation, admiration, affection, and no allegation. I feel like I'm getting dumber listening to this debate. No one's just taking a second to say, all right, and some good points are being thrown around, but I feel like this is this, I know that's like the point of The View is to kind of, and this is the point of a lot of political shows, just we're talking and we're mad at each other, sort of. But I feel like, why are we all doing this? Can we not be thoughtful that it's not as black and white as a lot of them are saying? But I'll give that in a second. Let's watch it end.
What about is not to get the point here.
So Joe Biden
just want to keep lowering the bar because
Joe Biden's cognitive decline caused a defeat.
I didn't say
it didn't cost the
what I said,
decay of freedom.
Anna, what I said at this table multiple times is I didn't think anyone was hiding a condition. The problem is aging is progressive. What he looks like today, he's running for a 4-year term. What will he look like next year and 4 years from now?
All right, the New York Housewives show will continue.
He would have quit.
Okay, and that's where it cuts to break. Okay, so a lot to say, but I'm going to try not to be too redundant because I do want to cut back to something I said already. But my point there is, what about, stop with that, please, I beg you, okay? And everyone wants to have a take. Trump won because blank. And clear, simple, and you know that works so well on Twitter. Get it? Yes. But do you know what it doesn't do? Help anyone think about this more thoughtfully. And so, is it the case that Biden, while he was having, policy-wise, a pretty dang successful presidency, his age started severely impacting his cognitive and physical abilities? Yes. And did that cause a lot of Americans to lose confidence in him and his governing ability, despite the results staying strong? Yes. And then did that contribute to Democratic voters not being as motivated to go out to vote, and independents swinging towards Trump, and obviously Republicans being very motivated to go out to vote, and distract from the pure bad that was Trump? Yes. And contributed to his win. All of that is true. And I think, again, we scream at each other. I think everyone in our movement, everyone on that panel agrees that the things Trump is doing is bad, that we all actually agree with that sequence of events. Maybe we disagree on how much we think that was a decisive factor. I've said I don't think that's the decisive factor to the same degree that, for example, the anti-incumbent wave because of pandemic price increases, regardless of how the different administrations across the world were handling it, and regardless of their political ideology, that backlash that was being seen, not just in the United States, but elsewhere, because of those same factors that came out of the pandemic, that I would put as, if I had to put a number one factor, was the number one factor, that regardless of how bad Trump was, there was going to be this urge to go the other direction. But these situations are not so black and white. You can have maybe the thing you think was the number one issue, but then, people's concerns about Biden also was a factor. And when people bring up sexism against Kamala, that's also going to be a factor. And we all disagree about how significant each one is. And then Kamala's campaign, how well she ran it or how well she didn't run it, that's a factor. And all those things add up. So when people give you this, no, it's because, they have to be missing something, because a presidential election is never that simple. And was it because a lot of people were uninformed about things and they voted for Trump? Yeah, that too. That's a factor too. And if Biden had, sorry for doing all these questions that I answer, I know it's very kind of cringy. I can answer my own questions. Correct. I'm nailing this quiz that I wrote. Was if Biden had made a decision earlier on not to run and had bolstered a successor, and any concerns about his aging wouldn't have been perceived as severe because he wasn't running for re-election, he was a transition president that he originally said he was going to be, would that have led to the Democrat winning? We don't know. That's the crazy thing. So we don't know. But that definitely would have been better. Now, in retrospect, we can say near certainly. And I think Pete Buttigieg provided a good model, as we looked at already, as to how Democrats should answer at this. Be honest, be direct, but then direct focus back to what you want to focus on.
Did President Joe Biden experience cognitive decline while in office?
Every time I needed something from him from the West Wing, I got it. And, the time I worked closest with him in his last year was around the Baltimore Bridge collapse. And what I can tell you is that, the same president that the world saw addressing that was the president that I was in the Oval with, insisting that we do a good job and do right by Baltimore. And that's characteristic of my experience with him.
Would the party have been better off if he had just not run for re-election?
Maybe, and right now, with the benefit of hindsight, I think most people would agree that that's the case. We're also not in a position to wallow in hindsight. We've got to get ready for some fundamental tests of the future of this country and this party, some of which are going on this very year, many of which will come next.
Yeah, so everything, you don't find all truths in the middle of splitting the difference between two things, right? If you just split the difference between the average Republican elected official and the average Democratic elected official, splitting the difference between those gets you further away from the most rational option, right? That's why I rail against people just saying it's always in between the two, because the Republican Party is getting more and more extreme. And even the Democratic Party has nudged, if you believe that, in this direction, that direction. This party has gone so off the deep end that you wouldn't want to keep splitting the difference, because then you would go closer and closer to the deep end, right? But in this case, I think it's somewhere in the middle. The people saying that talking at all about what happened with Biden and how he messed up and that contributed to a weaker Democratic Party going into the election, that talking about that at all is helping Trump, I think that's absurd. People who seem to only want to talk about that, I think that's also absurd, given what we're facing. Which is why that panel I made the joke about getting dumber, I don't think they're landing exactly right on it. Because it's a lot of, well, how could we talk about Biden when Trump is terrible? Yeah, Trump's terrible, which is why I think we should talk about Biden sometimes, to make sure we don't ever allow a dangerous candidate like that. We learn from the past. Jessica Tarlov also spoke on this.
And I think smart Democrats are focusing on the issues that matter to people, which is the economy right now. Already mentioned the tariffs, which are a huge tax on the American public, downgrading.
They do him dirty with those photographs. Come on. Oh, sorry, Joe. What does he have, like a triple turbo light in his eyes?
Our credit, Michigan Consumer Survey sentiment shows 30% drop since November. People are expecting inflation to get over 7% again in the next year. They are pessimistic about our economic prospects. That's what Donald Trump promised that he was going to deliver. And it's a really big deal that the reconciliation bill, the big, beautiful bill, failed out of the budget committee. And it's going to cut $880 billion from Medicaid, which Americans don't want. Those are the kinds of things that Democrats need to be focused on. Answer the questions. I think Pete Buttigieg did a really good job, but it's going to be about the kitchen table issues, as always, when the election comes.
Yeah, and everyone's acting like Americans won't move past that. A lot of rational Americans get it. They get that Biden won, his age more and more rapidly, impacted his public speaking ability, and then we can't really know necessarily how it impacted critical thinking, but we do know at some point plenty of aging we're totally fine with in how it affects you, right? I don't care if you're physically aging and now harder to walk and stuff, as long as the wisdom and experience that you've accumulated is benefiting your governance ability. And clearly that happened. That was helping certain governmental decisions based on things that he did that I really agree with. But then once you can't go out and just articulate yourself effectively to the American people, that is a part of the job of the presidency. And so it crosses a line. But I think most Americans kind of they get what happened, and it was unfortunate. But the right-wing media is trying to make this like, how will Democrats ever get the trust back of the American people when they lied? They lied about Biden. And maybe there was some lying. Like some people saying he was more snappity snap than I've ever seen him behind the scenes. And it's like, okay, chill a little bit. I've never seen a human being so energetic. It's like, all right, let's just chill for a second, okay? But for the most part, can we also not gaslight ourselves into remembering history like no one was talking about that? Everyone was talking about it daily. Like they keep saying, what are Democrats? What can liberal media do to gain back the trust of Americans when they refuse to talk about Biden's decline? And then I cut back to what I was covering at the time, and it was constantly clips of mainstream outlets. I was getting upset that it was getting talked about so much because I was thinking, hey, there's also other important stuff that's important, but there's also other important stuff. And maybe I got cognitive decline after that sentence. I'm not cognitively declining. Person, woman, man, camera to be.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
It's, yeah. And that was the alternative. Woo! Woo! But we cannot lie to ourselves that wasn't a thing being talked about constantly. That was the right wing's major attack against him, which constantly propped in debates on mainstream outlets about it. So let's not go overboard. Speaking of going overboard, first, make sure you're subscribed by clicking that subscribe button. If I haven't said that already this segment, we have a lot. This is going to be a long segment. Sorry. But it's fun. You love it. You love it. You love it. James Comer is bravely announcing that he is going to hold the president accountable because that's the job. And you're thinking, wait, Trump? He's holding Trump accountable? No. The former president. He's launching an investigation into Biden. Another one. To which Mediaite said, James Comer announces new investigation into Joe Biden. Really?
Breaking today, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is launching an investigation into Biden's use of the auto pen. Chairman Comer joins us now with the latest. All right, Chairman, you got your hands full. Tell us first about what you announced earlier.
When James Comer came on screen, producer Cole laughed. He just laughed. I didn't understand why he was laughing. It was just James Comer's face, and he just started laughing. I find my staff very rude. I'll have you know. Like, what, is this a jump scare to you, Cole?
Chairman Comer joins us now with the latest. All right, Chairman, you got your hands full. Tell us first about what you announced earlier today about what you're doing with the auto pen, because I do some work with the Oversight Project. They were on this early, but you are going and looking at who was controlling this auto pen, because Joe Biden, I mean, he's demonstrating that he doesn't have all the cognitive capabilities they had. That interview was from 2023.
Yeah, that's hard evidence. Early in the President Biden's term as president, it clearly shows that he was in.
All right, so this is Biden was so mentally incapacitated that he couldn't have possibly made decisions about what to sign, and it is crazy given that Biden would speak on the things he signed, and regardless of if he got a couple names wrong, he would still clearly know the thing that he was signing. Wouldn't it be crazy though if you had a clip of Joe Biden admitting that something he put his signature on he didn't sign? Oh wait, we do have that clip. No wait, this is Trump, huh?
It doesn't sound like this judge, who the DOJ is arguing with today about the deportation flights. He wants to know why the proclamation was signed in the dark, his words, and why people were rushed onto planes.
Because we want to get criminals out of our country, number one, and I don't know when it was signed because I didn't sign it. Other people handled it. But Marco Rubio's done a great job, and he wanted them out, and we go along.
I didn't sign it. But if you look on the invocation, it has his signature on it.
How the turntables.
True. Now you saw there James Comer. Cole surely saw James Comer. During this same interview on a different subject, James Comer used an interesting phrase.
Chairman Comer, one last question. That is about this interview, the Secret Service getting involved, doing an interview with James Comey. What do you think when you look at this? Do you think this was just some accident that the FBI...
This was about the shells, former FBI Director James Comey posting it and saying, oh, look at these shells. And they read 8647, which could mean remove 47 Trump. But then some people said it meant kill. That's obviously not what Comey meant, but we have to go through the motions like he did, cause we're Fox News.
former FBI director, didn't know what he was posting up about Donald Trump being obviously number 47?
My opinion of Comey is so bad, I don't know that I could give a fair and balanced answer to that question, Jason. Everything that he was involved in, that I was involved in investigating, there were mistakes made, there were lies told, There was incompetence demonstrated at every step of the way. So my confidence level in James Comey is so low. I could see that he made a simple mistake, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was intentional and they were trying to jizz up some type of coup or some type of insurrection, as Jamie Raskin would say, or whatever.
Yeah, maybe he just thought it meant withdrawal from office. Or maybe he was trying, maybe Comey was trying to drum up an insurrection. Sorry. Maybe so. Right, James? James Comer? Can we not? Is that a phrase, jizz up? Jaden? You there? Is jizz up a thing? James is the one who said it. Let's listen again. Maybe we misheard.
There were lies told. There was incompetence demonstrated at every step of the way. So my confidence level in James Comey is so low. I could see that he made a simple mistake, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was intentional and they were trying to jizz up some type of coup or some type of insurrection, as James.
Yeah, they're trying to jizz up insurrection. Sorry, I keep misspeaking. Apologies. Thanks, James. We appreciate you. I told you I was going to show you a clip from the bonus show. We don't have time for that. I apologize. But go get the bonus show, and you can watch it yourself by clicking the join button below.